anyway. And whoever, does anybody know who OWHHH is? If not, they don't get to come in. Okay, so David is OWHHH. Okay, yeah, we've got confirmation on that. Okay, we'll try again with him. If anybody can message him, can you do that? Tell him, hey, try one more time, but see if you can use your real name. We're going to give it 2 seconds. Thanks for being here. Hang on a minute. Okay. Ben, are you trying to message him? Okay, thanks. Okay. Well, while that's going on, let's go ahead and get started. So, a couple of things. I think it wouldn't be those that are on here because you care about your grade and you're doing well. But I think my frustration right now is that we've been mentioning this all year, and I still have 5 people that want to pick up books at school. So if I'm on a little bit of an edge, that's why. You guys have taken care of business, but not all of you have, and it's very frustrating. But with this essay, don't make it more complicated than it is, but you are going to tell me why is it worthwhile to read these books by telling me about one combining theme for the books. I think somebody needs to mute. Can somebody mute? It looks like Connor, maybe. I'm just getting a lot of feedback. So when you are preparing this essay, you're not coming up with something brand new. You're proving something that should be somewhat of a universal truth and proving it by using what you've read. So you're not going to say courage is a stupid thing to have, because that goes against everything we know in our society, right? That being courageous has nothing to do with stupidity. It might be a bit risky to be courageous, but that's not the same thing. Does that make sense? So we're not asking you to make something new of it, but we are asking what in the world did you learn? And that's what we're trying to figure out. So what is it about this group of books that stands out to you as a lesson that you can take with you? Does that make sense? You can nod at me if you want to. It's kind of a rhetorical question. We're using these books for those main ideas that we should have grasped when we were reading it to say, wow, man, Scout really learned that lesson the hard way. Or, oh my gosh, this whole town needs to understand how bad this or that is. Does that make sense? Or the society on the island, why can't they see that acting as a mob is turning them into monsters? Right? So all of those things that we see that go against or for our moral conscience. So those kind of ideas are what we're looking at. It's not that you have to have something brand new. So when you're looking at your evidence, some of you have asked me the same questions over and over again, which is, I tried to answer that. Did y'all see my video about how to put in a judo doc? A judo doc is not hard to use. You just got to try it, and it works exactly like a Google Doc, but it's hooked directly into Jupyter Ed, so it makes it easier for me to grade, and it keeps multiple copies so that if you turn in a copy today that was due and then you make adjustments to it, I still have the original to grade, but you can make all of those updates. And it's all in one place for you instead of having to email it to me or even upload it to the website. It's right there on Jupyter Ed. So I think it's going to save us some time to where you don't have to create multiples. And it doesn't, I don't have to look in multiple places either. It puts it all in the right spot. But when you're looking at the thesis statement, my goal was to get you to not say, these 3 books have this theme. Well, yes, that's why we're using the books. We're not proving the books. We're proving the theme. And our source text that we're using to prove that are the books. In other words, if you tell me something that only applies in those books and can't apply anywhere out in the real world, then we have a problem. Okay, so I'm going to admit O-W-H-H-H, and if it's not a real person named David, y'all are in trouble. Sound good? Okay, so I've just admitted O-W-H-H-H. If you are David, you need to come on and say, yes, my name is David, and use your last name so that I know you're here under the right pretenses. David, did you hear me? David, can you unmute your mic and say hello and your full name, please?
Hello, this is David Gum.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, so whatever you're proving, it's not just provable within those books. It needs to be something universal. That's why I'm saying it's not these three things. This theme is proved in these three books. That's not what it is. We're talking about a topic: courage, love, sacrifice, innocence, bravery, appearance versus reality, and we're using the books to prove what we think of that topic. But that should be applicable to everything. Does that make sense? That's going to do a couple things for us. It's going to let me know if you understand a bit of a universal truth, and then you're going to defend it by giving me examples from a book. So if I said something to you like, man is born courageous, is that true or false? Y'all should already know this from a past test. Is man born courageous? He's not. Man has to find a way to be courageous by learning from someone who has done before, right? With Henry, with his mentors in the army, who has given him the path, which just says you don't have to be brave, you have to act brave, right? In order to be considered courageous, you have to stick into the fight. You cannot run away from the risk. Being courageous means facing the battle and sticking with it, and then on the other end of it, you're considered courageous. Does that make sense? So if I can prove that with just Henry, can I prove that with Atticus Finch? Is that possible? Is there a bravery in Atticus Finch? What does he do that's brave? You can unmute or you can put it on the chat. What does he do that's brave?
He defends the black man.
He does. He defends Tom Robinson against his entire community, putting his family at risk. Hello, the guy that was actually the accuser's parent tries to kill his own kids, right? This doesn't come without risk. He can be considered brave for doing the right thing even when it's inconvenient to him. So if we're looking at how to make this essay, that's what we're looking for. Our thesis statement isn't, this theme is in these three books. Our thesis statement is a universal truth about that theme. So it's appearance versus reality. Is it appearance versus reality exists in all areas of life? Well, that's a true statement, right? I can put on, oh, let me see if I can get close enough without making it look up my nose. I can put on false eyelashes. Does that make them real? No, these are actually my real ones. They're just covered in mascara. But is there an appearance versus reality there? Yes. When I go out to my Walmart run at like 10 p.m. and I look like the real me, there's a different reality there, isn't there? But that's not the point of it. The point of appearance versus reality has to do with what you can trust, what is true and what is false, right? So when you're proving appearance versus reality, you're saying false things can mislead us, or truthful things are what we should look for among those appearances. Does that make sense? Maybe it's don't go by what you see, right? What you see, judging a book by its cover, is not always the truth. Does that make sense? So it's not that we're even talking about education. Education is awesome. It's not our thesis statement. But what is it about education that society needs or wants or benefits from? That's what I'm trying to get you to see on the thesis statement. Does that make sense? Can I get thumbs ups or down on that? Okay, so your thesis statement doesn't have to be some deep, ethereal, new thing. It really needs to be a universal thing. And then your books will help you to prove that, so that you'll have 3 body paragraphs. And this is why I wanted to turn around. So you'll have 3 body paragraphs. And within those body paragraphs, you're going to have 2 examples. So if we're talking about education, You could have your two examples, or even appearance versus reality. No, probably education. You could have, can we edit our thesis? Absolutely. Theses are always editable. This is something that you should be adjusting as you go. Okay, but when you're looking at, let's say we're talking about the theme of education, with To Kill a Mockingbird, you can have a couple examples from there of education. Do you guys remember anything about the school, of what education theme was going on there? Anybody?
Decimal.
Okay, so we had the Dewey system, and so we had Scout and the Dewey system, which was to tell her she is not an individual. Everyone has to do things in the same box at the same pace, right? Two topics, or that I completely change it to the new topic. You can change to a new topic, and I did see your email. I would just say, what is your conclusion about the new topic you gave me? Okay, Mac? That it, I think it was death, is that right? So can we say, I mean, a truthful statement would be everyone dies. Is that we're going to learn from in your essay though? No, it needs to be what's universal about that affects us all. Does that make sense? Okay, so so back to education. If we're looking at Scout and the Dewey system, we know that she is frustrated because she's being asked to do things at the same pace, even though she has already learned. Is there another example of education in To Kill a Mockingbird? Anyone?
I kind of
Keep going, Ryan. I can't hear you.
can you hear me?
A bit. It's a bit fuzzy, but go ahead.
Her learning from her dad about defending Tom.
Okay, so well, yes, but that would be more about innocence. What about looking at the other side of it? Someone like, you could compare it with Burris. Burris Ewell sits in the same classroom, but does he learn? Does he change? Does he grow? No. So education in this situation in To Kill a Mockingbird really does benefit, but only if there's something else there. Do you see what I meant about taking education, what it does, and adding a that or a which on your statement? What about Frederick Douglass? Frederick Douglass, could you come up with two things about education in there? Well, you better, right? The entire thing is about self-education, about desiring to learn, and about pushing through and persevering until you get the education you need so that it helps you to get to your goals. Does everybody kind of understand what we're doing? Now, when you turn in your evidence, I don't need page numbers tonight, but that should be your goal. Try to get that evidence nailed down tonight so that the rest of your week is a lot easier. You at least need this, right? You need the name of the book and the two examples that you're going to use. Does that make sense? Can y'all even see what I've put up on that board? Yeah? Okay, kind of. All right, so do you need direct quote tonight? No. Should you try to have direct quote tonight? Yes, because that way you're that much closer to getting your outline together by Friday midnight. Does that make sense? Okay, now I have to mention this, and some of it's going to sting to y'all, but if you haven't been doing your reading well all year, if it's been something that you've left off, or you've missed annotation checks, or you were relying on everyone else in seminar to help fill you in on details, it's going to show on this paper unless you're careful. Okay? Not all of us are strong readers, but we should be strong enough to notice these bigger things, right? And if you can get me to this point about Scout needing the Dewey, of learning in the Dewey system and her frustration, I'm more than happy to help you get to a page number. But if you look at me and say, so what is the theme of education that's in Much Ado About Nothing? I'm not going to answer that, okay? This is your paper, and you need to take control of it. Now, once you have your examples and we start putting in the explanations and the conclusions, that's what ties it all together, okay? But you've got to know, what was it in the story that taught you about this particular theme? Does that make sense? Does anybody have any questions at this point? Let me look on the chat. Frederick, okay, so if you have one, okay, so let's back up. If you are one that is like way overwhelmed, don't know what to do, I'm not sure I can do this paper, you need to pick a big theme. Courage is one of them. Innocence could be another one. I think I put perseverance on another one. Those are, I wouldn't say they're easier. I think they're easy to see the big events in each story that relate to that theme. Okay. If you're doing appearance versus reality, that's a lot more subtle on the evidence. So it's a little more nuanced on how to put that together. Now, it's not that you can't. Like on appearance versus reality, obviously you'd use much ado because that is the entire theme of much ado as for a major theme. But on To Kill a Mockingbird, you could be comparing what the society likes to portray and how they actually behave, right? But those are more difficult pieces to find on the evidence. If you're looking at integrity, you can definitely look at characters that have integrity. So like maybe if you did integrity for To Kill a Mockingbird, your first piece of evidence might be someone who has integrity, Atticus, right? And the second one might be his antithesis, the foil to him, which is Mr. Ewell, right? So if you're looking at your topic, you can prove it by showing a really strong example and the opposite example if you want to, okay? Any other things? Let's see. So is bravery okay? Bravery is great. I think I just referred to it, Alexander, as courage. So yes, but remember, it's not just there is courage in each of these books, but is what is important about courage. And one of those things that we had on our last Red Badge test that might be a starting place for you to think about it is that courage is not something we're born with. It's something that has to be tested. And if that ends up being your thesis, make it into your own, okay? But do I have to turn in an explanation? Tonight we are just turning in evidence, Ben. So just make sure you get the basic of where you found your evidence. So I am working on this thesis, try to rough together a thesis statement. That's why I opened up the pod from April 30th, which was last Thursday, so that you could check your thesis. I gave feedback on it to say, this isn't quite a thesis yet, right? And a lot of it was because we said, this is in these 3 books. We need to get past that and move it into why is it important to know about courage? Is it important to know about courage? Is it important to know about appearance versus reality? Y'all, have you tried to watch the news lately? I don't know what's real. I don't know what's fake. Things that are real, other people call fake. We are living in a very strange time. I would think it'd be very important for you to know what's important about appearance and reality, right? Same thing with integrity. I've tried to tell y'all all year long that when we're in an age of online world, and how much more online can we get? We're on a weird Zoom call. That your integrity matters, right? That if you don't have a basis of understanding that someone believes you when you say something and can trust you, then the hill is that much more steep in trying to get employment, trying to find friends, trying to make your way in the world, right? The only thing that you can really take forward is not really the stuff, it's who you are, right? So that's what we're trying to get at with this final essay. You guys know how to make a body paragraph. You know how to put a transition with a qualifier, a quote, and a citation. These should be innate by now. What we're trying to do now is craft an argument, which takes those body paragraphs and learns how to put it into a larger package so that we can convince someone of our ideas. Does that make sense? But in order to be excellent at that moving forward, it takes step by step. And right now, we're putting 3 sources together, 3 body paragraphs, and then we're going to learn how to craft it with an intro and conclusion that help to convince our audience. Make sense? We'll do those steps together next week on the intro and conclusion. But it's about, this is the first time you've had to craft your own thesis sentence, but it's not the first time you've had to have an opinion, right? I know most of you, looking around, you have opinions. You have a lot of opinions, and you should. I think it's learning, how does that opinion affect someone else? How can I portray my opinion in a way that someone else will listen? Okay, not necessarily change their mind, but will they consider what I believe? Make sense? Okay, so we can believe and prove anything. If you really believe that integrity is malleable and that you can be different things to different people, and it doesn't matter who you are on your weekends as long as you are Joe dependable at the workplace, you can make that defense. But within our text, can you make that defense? And that's what we're trying to see, okay? That would be what we call situational ethics. And there are times and ways that you could probably make that argument that what you do at home should not should not affect what you are able to do at work. I don't know that everybody would agree with that, but within our books, is that something we can necessarily prove? Probably not. We have to go with what we've been asked as our basis, which is right here. All of this, right? All of our books. If you don't have all your books, I am going up at 7 o'clock tonight, probably 6 o'clock because we have a 7:30 meeting for those that couldn't be on this one. If you need your books, I need your locker combination and your locker number so that I can get everything out of your locker and put it outside the door in a baggie with your name on it. There is going to be locker clean out at the end of the year, but as of right now, there's no plan for students to be able to do that. I think the office has to do it. So if you need something out of your locker, I'm happy to do that for you. But I've tried to get y'all to do this for 2 or 3 weeks. So if you're one of those people that doesn't have all your books out yet, please let me know now. We're kind of beyond the last minute with that, so let's get it done, okay? Is there anything else? Now, you guys are still reading about 5 pages a night, but you're not having to do annotations. So you could even turn it on as an audiobook. But you will have quizzes to know if you understand what you're hearing in the plot, okay? To continue with my Antonia for another couple weeks. Do y'all realize we only have like 14 days of school left? I'm ready. This is crazy. I miss y'all and I don't like this, but we have to do our best to keep moving forward, especially with writing because it does affect you next year, okay? Any questions? Has this been helpful? Okay, good. All right, I'm glad you're excited for high school. I didn't even think about it till I was talking with Haley yesterday that was the last time she sat in my classroom, y'all. I know, I'm gonna pout. I threatened to have her in my composition class next year. I don't know that she was really happy about that. So, because I will have some of you next year, but only a third of you. I miss the seniors. Yes. Oh, so I ran into Alyssa Clips yesterday. She's a senior and she didn't get to have her softball season. She was the only senior on the team. Felt really bad. I hate that. Do we need all of the books, even the ones we don't need? You only need the ones that you need for your essay, Pablo, but if you need something out of your locker, I'm pulling all of it out of your locker, your shelf, your mirror, your lipstick, whatever else, okay? Not that Pablo has lipstick. Y'all understand what I mean. Because they're going to have to clean it out anyway. The office ladies are going to have to undo every lock and pull everything out, and I don't really know how they plan on getting that to you, but I can help you do that if you need it right now, okay? Only if you need books, because other than that, I've got other things to do today. Is it a good example of courage? Yes, Ryan, as long as you explain it. I think you have to be very careful in the explanation to tie that as to why that is a courageous act. And there are a couple spots to look at with what Atticus says in reaction to Jem, okay? Anybody else? Should I change bravery to courage? It's the same concept, Alexander. It's fine either way. I just didn't want you to think I wasn't talking about bravery when I was talking about courage. So you can call it bravery for sure. What page is the fire? I can answer those things, but let's not do it on the Zoom. Guys, you do have a group discussion where you had put the themes, and under each theme, my goal was for you to put these kind of things. That if you are under the theme of, Ben, let's see, what are you looking at with the fire? What is your theme you're working on? Okay, so with innocence, you would go to the innocence I had set up as a thread on that discussion thread, innocence, and reply to that and say, where is the fire scene on this? I would like to use this for my innocence discussion. And it's either chapter 8 or 9, just so you know, Ben, but off the top of my head. But that's the place to put it, because you guys should be helping each other find all your evidence. Most of you are going to be using, a majority of you are going to be using the same evidence, and that's fine. And that way you have a place and a reference to look at that. So there's also one on there for courage. There's one in there for appearance versus reality. From what I understand, everybody's put a theme in there, and I cleaned up the themes so that it's not just 17 people posting the word innocence, but it's innocence, and then you're going to put 17 comments underneath it about innocence so that you have one place to look. Does that make sense? But I don't think anybody's put any evidence there. So if you have questions per those themes, put your question under that discussion thread, okay? All right, let me see if I've missed something else on the chat, and then I think we're done. Let me see. Catherine, you're fine. That's why we're here. I'm more upset with people that don't ask questions and then go, oh, by the way, I needed something 4 days ago. Can I get it? That's what bothers, right? Okay. All right. Anything else? How do I form a thesis on innocence? Okay, Joel, I gave the directions in, I think, the pod on the 29th. I will go and open those pods back up, but it's making your thesis sentence should be about the topic and your opinion. But within that opinion, you have to, you need a strong verb. So not just innocence is, although that can start you on the path to thinking the right direction, but innocence, what does it benefit a person with? What does innocence benefit someone, or how is it harmful, or what is to be learned from innocence? Does that make sense, Joel? So you've got to think, what is your conclusion about innocence? We had a discussion at the very beginning of the year about innocence, of whether or not it's, should we expose young children to adult topics? Like when we think of the rating system for TV or movies, why shouldn't a parent be able to take a child to a mature movie or a rated R? These are things to think about. And when you put it in those extreme situations, most of us go, oh, yeah, you shouldn't take a child there, right? But it's in the more subtle things. Should Scout ask the question about rape as a 10-year-old girl? Yes. But should her dad tell her those intricate things that maybe she doesn't need to know then? No. Does he tell her the truth? Yes. But does he tell it on a level that protects her innocence? Yes. Okay. Those are all things that we had talked about in several seminars. So when you're making your thesis statement, you've got to think, what do I know about innocence? What matters to me about innocence? What matters to society about innocence? Some of you will think more clearly when you think, what matters in my faith about innocence? And that's fine. You're in a school that doesn't limit you with your faith, right? Okay. So think in those directions. That'll tell you a lot about what you believe. What do you believe about truth? Is there truth? Is there one thing that can be true and others that will be false, or is everything just gray and confusing? Well, on the news, it's all confusing. Everything else, there should be clear definitions of truth and falsehoods, okay? And definitely we have examples in the book that prove that, okay? Is it true that I am amazing? Thank you. All right, is growth, innocence, maturity one of them? Yes. So that was put all into one category because innocence and maturity are directly related, right? So if you have that connection there, you can make a connection between growth and maturity. You can make a connection between courage or bravery and fear, because those are antithetical opposites, right? But how are they related? Does one choose courage? Does one choose fear? Is one trapped by those things, or do they have control over them? These are all questions to just get you thinking, okay? What page do the boys talk about Boo being bad? Several places. That's why we put that on the chat, on that other discussion thread, Kat, okay? All right, let me see. Y'all, I'm really impressed that this computer is far enough away that I haven't had to use my glasses very much. Okay. Yes, ask in the thread. Any other questions? It's been about 30 minutes, and that's what I wanted to keep it to. If there are no more questions, I'm going to go ahead and and stop the recording. But then if you have individual questions, I can stay on for just a little bit. But to be truthful, I've only ate half my lunch and it's 4:30, so we won't go too much longer. Okay? All right, so I'm going to stop the recording. You're welcome to